Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Writing Extensions for Visual Studio with Mats. That's me. And as always, I have James in the background producing the show. Hello, James. How are you doing?
I'm amazing. How are you?
That's great to hear. I'm pretty good, too. It's Friday. It's the afternoon here. It's the last thing I do on Fridays is to record these things before I get to enjoy the weekend. So, yeah, feeling pretty good about that.
Same for me. It's my last thing of the day. I get to produce a beautiful, beautiful, amazing show with you. And additionally, what's really great is I cannot wait for this episode because I've been waiting for code snippets, deep dive forever. So I'm real jazzed about this because this is something that everybody can use. So I'm really excited about it.
That's right. So code snippets, yes. Code snippets is one of those things that's kind of simple, right? Or it should be simple to do, but yet when it comes to creating them and putting them in an extension, it's maybe a little bit harder. So let's go back to basics on how to do a code snippet. And, I did actually cheat and prepare some stuff up front. And so I'll see if I can find that later on. But James, if you can shift to the Visual Studios, thank you. Let's create a new project. So I'm going to have a V6, if I can, I already have one, empty V6 project right here. Empty V6 project, C#. It's kind of funny how they're, C# or VB if it's empty, but, there's actually a reason. So let's just call this awesome, if I can spell snippets, awesome snippets. Because these are going to be awesome, as it were. So as always, when we do an empty project here, we get pretty much nothing. And that's wonderful. That's exactly what we want. Because we're going to go back to basics. And how do we create some snippets? Well, we need a few things. We need the snippet files themselves, the XML files. And then we need a way to register them. And that's a file called a package step file. So we're going to take a look at that. But let's just see here. Let me, do I have a C# file? I don't have a C# file. Well, that's weird. I'll have to open any random C# file. I just want to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing when we say snippets. So this is the largest font in the universe. James made me use a font this huge. Thank you, James. So I'm going to use a snippet here, just so we all know what a snippet is. So this is a snippet. I'm not going to hit the tab button, and it's going to create, in this case, a constructor in C#. So a snippet is something we can type in an editor, and then it will, as we hit tab, it will expand into what it is. And we can do different things. Like here, we have replacements right here. So should this be an int or a string? I can just type that and then hit tab to go to the next expansion. What are these called? These are called expansion placeholders, let's say. And we can give it a name foo, right? And then I can either hit enter or escape to kind of complete my snippet creation. So that is pretty much the ability of Visual Studio snippets. They are not the most flexible in the world or the most exciting in that sense. They're limited in features, but very, very useful nonetheless. These particular two snippets are some I use all the time, by the way. And of course, who can forget for each? I don't even know how to write a for each statement, let alone a for statement without using snippets. That's how much I've gotten used to them over the years. Okay, so we need two things, right? We need a snippet file and we need a registration file. So let's start with the snippets file. I'm going to create a folder structure here. Snippets, and then awesome. So two folders here, snippets and awesome. Also, there was a few NuGet packages being restored here. We don't care. So now we have snippets and we have awesome. And so awesome is the name of my snippet pack. That's what I want the snippets to be known as, awesome. Okay. So inside that, I'm going to create a snippet. So a snippet is an XML file, but here you actually, Visual Studio for some reason doesn't know it's an XML file. There is that. And I said that I did cheat a little bit because I created a snippet file already for JavaScript. So I just copied that in. Notice how Visual Studio still thinks this is just text. So I have to close it and reopen it. And we can talk about how that actually works. Yes, Mr. Geek Gamer, you need a particular set of components installed to get the V6 template. You need the Visual Studio extensibility workload. That's here. So I don't know if you guys know that, but if I click modify, let's see here. So these big things here that you can with checkboxes, these are called workloads. And in order to do extensions, we have to install this one, the Visual Studio Extension Development Workload. It's not very big, so that's an easy one to get on. Okay, so now I have a snippet. So let's just take a look at what this snippet file is doing here. So there's a few things I have to do in a snippet. I have to give it a name, like a title, rather. And then who built this? Well, in this case, it's me. So I'm just going to write my name here. And then the shortcut. So that's the one we saw before where I was writing for each tab. So the word for each is the shortcut. You can actually have multiple of these if you wanted to, I believe. And then a description. So that's what's going to be shown in the tooltip that shows up in Intellisense. And then we're going to say this is an expansion. So snippets are called snippets some places in Visual Studio, but other places they're called code expansions or expansions, because that's kind of what they do, right? That's literally what they do. And speaking of literal, we got some literals defined. So this is kind of our variables. So we're defining 3 literals, and they just have an ID and then a tooltip and what their default value is. And we can see down here when we actually define what to inject when you hit the tab key. This is what we inject. That's the code. In this case, it's JavaScript, right? So we're injecting JavaScript. And you can see here, it says $event $, and $body $. Oh, and $object. And you can see those matches, it matches these IDs. So the idea is that we get to have those placeholders, those expansion placeholders that we can tap between. So it starts here and hit tab, goes over here, and then finally body. And then when we're done, we go down to $and $. Now this is a protected or a keyword. Notice how $and $, is not defined in my literals. That's because it's like it's a keyword, right? That means where should the cursor end? What's the position of the cursor once we're done with the inserting the snippet? There's another one that's which is this one. So it's called $selection $. So this one is pretty handy if you want to make a selection and then you want to say, right click and say surround with snippet. Let's just do that. Right click. Do we even have snippets? Surround with. You see, we can surround with element. That was a really, really, really bad one. Let's do one where I actually select. So is it Control KS? Yeah. Element. You see, it surrounds. It keeps the selection and just puts the new element around. So that's how we can use selection to keep that the selection in our snippet like that. Okay, so what I've done here is I've defined the name, the shortcut, and some parameters or variables, and then declared here what exactly my text should be, the expansion itself, and that's pretty much it. So these are This is now a snippet that's done. This snippet will work. So now we just need to hook it up. So this is an extension, right? So what is it that makes an extension an extension? Well, it's two things. It's how it's being built, because it's kind of just the class library. So it's how it's being built. So the MS build targets that run. And then it's this v6 manifest right here. So this one was generated based on what I selected, right, when I created the project. I like to use just a GUID for my ID here. We can fill in all this stuff. We should. But let's get back to this. We could also say, hey, this is a preview and this is version 0.5. You know, there's something nice about that until at least you are confident that it works, and then do the 1.0. Just to tell people that something here is in preview. Okay. So now we need to add another file, and this is a file that can write to the registry. Oh, how would I escape dollars in the? Okay, so if I have a dollar in there, how would I escape it? It's either this. I think it's this. I think it's a backslash. That's documented. James was asking if I had any links, and I said no, I don't need it for this. But I should have gotten the link for the snippets documentation. It's actually all documented pretty well. This is one of the things in Visual Studio documentation that kind of works, so that's great. All right, so I'm going to add a file that writes to the registry. And remember, well, you remember if you know this, but maybe you don't know this, but Visual Studio does not write to the registry any longer. For the longest time, it would write all of its different settings into the Windows registry. And that was a huge strain on the registry because it put so much stuff in there. And so there was a decision to move everything out. And it was also such that we could have multiple versions of Visual Studio installed side by side without sharing too many of the settings, right? And so when I say it writes to the registry, it actually doesn't write to the Windows registry. It writes to the derouted registry, which is a private registry.bin file that lives under your local app data somewhere under Microsoft Visual Studio. Private registry.bin. It's either local app data or roaming app data, one of the two. But for all intents and purposes, it is the same thing. So let's add a file like that. It's called a package.def file. So we're just going to call this snippets.package.def. And if you got the extensibility essentials extension, you will have a nice syntax highlighting for what we're about to do. I'm just gonna open this. See, it's like a cooking show where I prepared all the food in advance, or like what was that? It was like a fishing show from Australia, like some years ago that I used to watch. I'm not a fisherman, by the way, but I always thought it would be funny if you saw them, fishing for like a long time, and then they were like, "Oh, by the way, we cheated and we already caught this yesterday." I don't know. So that's what I've been doing here. I've been preparing, and I've created a very, very, standard package.def file. So we're going to write to the registry. This is the key that we're going to set in the registry. Root key means this is where Visual Studio's root is in the registry. So that's kind of just a macro. And then this is a JavaScript path, but notice here I could give it any other language. I'm just going to do JavaScript for now. Package folder. So here's an interesting thing. When we're dealing with extensions and we think packages, we are thinking the package class, right? A C# class that derives from package or async package. But that kind of just generates a package.def file. So the actual package is a package.def file, not a C# file. And so when it says the package folder, it's actually talking about the folder that holds this very file in it, okay? So relative to this package folder, there's a folder called awesome. And if we look at that, awesome and the package.def file are siblings, right? So that means we're going to register code expansions for the JavaScript languages. We're going to register the path called, awesome, basically. And I think this value over here can be whatever. But the name of the folder here, I think, determines the name of the code snippet container. Okay, so now we need to do two important things. We need to set some properties here. We need to say that both the snippet file and the package dev file are content, and they should be included in the v6. Okay, so far so good. Now we just need for our extension to tell Visual Studio that it has a package file in it, and we do that under assets. So we give it a new asset, say vs package, file on file system, and snippets. This snippet package dev file. And so now I'm gonna just run it, Control F5. Is the snippet creation any different than the one you would create in VS Code? OP asks. Yes, very much so. VS Code snippets are JSON, and I think they have more features, and they support a bunch of the TextMate stuff as well. So TextMate can be either XML, YAML, or JSON, maybe even more. Okay, so what was that? That was JavaScript. Let's go here. Tools, Code Snippet Manager. And I'm going to select JavaScript from the list. And I see something here. It says awesome. Check this out. It showed up. So that's the one. Okay, so let's try it out. So let's create a new JavaScript file. So the shortcut was AE. And you can see here how, let's try zooming, see how that looks. Oh, AE, you see the snippet icon looks like this. It's almost like a cinema ticket, that's torn off or something like that. And here's that tooltip, code snippets for add event listener. So tab, right? And then I can say, I can fill out this, load, unload, whatever. Yep. And then click tab again. I go now to the body. And then if I hit enter or escape, I go to the end, right? To the end is where the cursor now is. So that's cool. So yeah, so that's a you see here, that's a very, very simple way to create snippets. So let me just recap, because we went through this. I guess I don't feel it was that quick, as in it's just a kind of a simple concept, right? So snippet files, you can have as many as you want in here. And snippets are actually, it's kind of weird. This is what I think is kind of weird with snippets. You can either have code snippet or code snippets. Okay. So you can have a bunch of these there and put into its parent like that. Right? And then you can have multiple code snippet, multiple of these inside here. So you can have just one file with a bunch. And you may want to do that for related code snippets. Then why not, right? But I've never done it myself. I think it's kind of weird. So that's completely up to you. All right. So this could not be easier. And this works with all languages that are currently registered for working with snippets. And so all the major ones all support it, right? Even if you have an extension that supports snippets, and if I look here, I have at least one. So if I go to Code Snippet Manager, see your editor config, that's an extension that ships with some here, right? So you can target that as well. So I might just, so in this example right here, it just says these are the known ones built into VS. But if you have extensions like that editor config extension, you could put editor config in here like that, and that would be it. There is a way to figure this out, I think. So if we go to other windows, settings, store, explorer. So again, if you get the extensibility essentials, you will be able to peek into the registry. So this is the registry, and it looks like the Windows registry, but it's not. So here we can find, okay, root key. In this case, that's the config node up here. And then languages, code expansions. And then we have, so you can see here, here's a bunch that exists that's registered. So HTML has 2. HTML, I think they probably both work. HTML_X HTML is the web forms, ASP.NET Web Forms Editor, which is the old one. HTML_X is the new one that supports everything. Okay. So that was code snippets. Now let's take a look at another way of doing them. And I feel like, editor config. Let's see here. If you are writing a language service, I don't know if any of you have a language service. Those are basically, if you have a full language implementation. And so this handles a file called editor.editorconfig. And here we have our package class. So this extension makes it a little bit different, because if you already have an extension, like in this case, this is actually an extension that provides a language service, as I was saying. You can see it provides a language service. It also provides, look at this, provide language code expansion. So code expansion, we know that those are snippets, right? And you have to give it a GUID, or a type in this case. And then we give it a path. So the package folder, in this case is sort of just the root of my project here. And then code expansions and snippets. Okay. So in this case, we didn't need the package def file, because what does this do? What do all these attributes do that is on top of my async package? Well, they all produce package def file. Here, no, not that one. I have never built this. Can that be true? That seems like it wouldn't be true. All right. So here's our v6. So here's the editor config.package def file that was generated. That's generated based on all these attributes that are right here. So the MS build target does that, but we can also peek inside the v6 itself, and we can see here it is, right? So this is the package folder. So when it says here $package folder, well, it's the folder that contains that package def file right there. And so code expansions and snippets, and we have them right here. Well, let's take a look at this package def file. Okay, so let's see if we can find the code expansions. Why did I open it in this? Hang on. Let's get some color on this. There we go. All right, so code expansion, here we go. So you can see that's exactly that key here. And it also registers on top. something else. So if you have the GUID for packages and language servers and all that sort of stuff, you can also just manually do it this way. But you can see the way that it registers those snippets is the exact same as we had before. Okay. And this is for the editor config. So any questions? Let's see here. I'm just browsing through. When I look down here, I'm looking down at your comments, okay? What's wrong? Hey, Daddy Jappy, what's with the theme? Zulu King, yes, I'm working with Amanda. Okay. So let's see here. Anything else? What about you, James? Did this answer your questions about your snippets?
And unmuted. There we go. Good question. The one thing on snippets that I had was sometimes you may want to sort of templatize an entire kind of file. Let's say a value converter, or in Xamarin, we do a lot of custom renders. And sometimes those need like namespace exports.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure what the best way to create those are, because they can be pretty complex. Sometimes they're like really small snippets, but then you're thinking like, here's some really big snippets, and I want to, include the namespace, and I want to include like a namespace export or something like that attribute.
Right.
Kind of fascinating.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's not already in, if there might not already be sort of a macro, like a dollar root namespace dollar. So I'm just scrolling through here to see. This is sort of the basic stuff.
I think you showed a lot of code snippets, but then I'm very interested in like variable replacement. I guess those are those literals and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, right. So, but I like that idea because what does code snippet function? Oh, okay. Generate a switch case. So you have an expression. Yeah. And class name. Let's see here.
Yeah, because I guess you would almost want to say like, oh, I'm going to bring in the snippet. I'm basically going to like delete everything in the file and then lay down a file. I guess you could do an item template.
Well, so yeah, so let's talk about the difference between those two, because they're both very static in nature.
Mm-hmm.
But an item template can do anything that you can do in an extension at the same time. So if you're really going for it, you can make an item template do whatever you want. But what it's not going to do is it's not going to help you, let's say, rewrite an existing file. That's just, even though it could, I don't think anyone would ever think about going to add new item or add new file or whatever to modify an existing file. Yeah. So it might just be invisible if you add that feature there. What would probably be better would be, you right click on your file and have a button that does what you're doing. So you're completely customizing it. That's the thing about these snippets, is that they're very static. So they don't actually do, or they're not able to do much. When we're talking about item templates, they have a bunch more built-in macros like root namespace and such that will automatically follow the folder structure of where the item goes in. Yeah, these are very basic stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So we had some other question is, let's see here. Oh man, I don't know. This isn't a snippets question, but someone was asking, I guess it'd be an extension. How can you go to actually change the Visual Studio UI? For example, maybe change the positioning of code lens info, or creating your own type of code lens adornment. It's not a snippet, but Visual Studio ads.
Right. You can totally do that. So there's many ways of doing that. Let me just find you a super simple one. that the one? Yeah. So I have, I just got a new laptop, so I don't have all my repos down yet. So I'm just gonna go for it here. So let's open SVG viewer. So we are having Christian Gunderman. He's coming in a few weeks talking about like the Visual Studio Editor. So what you want to do if you want to create Codelens, let's just show people what Codelens is, so that we're all here. This is Codelens. See here, this line here, right here. And notice how it doesn't have a line number out here. So it's basically like UI that's injected without taking up lines. So there's 3 here. The 0 references, 0 changes, and 0 authors, 0 changes. Those are 3 individual indicators, Codelens indicators. And I believe that these indicators, you can write an extension so that you can get yours in here. So you can have a 4th one coming in here if you want that. For, there was an extension that did some document health. It would tell you the cyclomatic complexity of your methods, stuff like that. So you can do all sorts of fun things with that. You can also inject completely your own stuff. So for that, you need something called an adornment. So here I have a text view creation listener that whenever you open one of these types of files, HTMLX, that's just HTML, right? The new HTML editor, XML or SVG, it will create an adornment. Okay. So it will create a adornment layer, which is just a MEF export like this. And then that has an SVG adornment. Sorry, that's an SVG. That has a WPF element. Okay, so you can do whatever you want in a WPF element and inject it. And let's just run this so we can see it. I don't have an SVG. Let's find an SVG image. This is a great one. Okay, let's do one that's I was thinking let's do one, but let's just do this one. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's create HTML file. Let's save that on the desktop. See down here? And I hover it and it gives me a height and a width. So if we give it a different color, blue, it changes down there. Okay. So that's called an adornment. And this one I just said, hey, go to the bottom somewhere. I'm basically telling it to go to the bottom right corner. Somewhere. Here. So the viewport right and the viewport bottom. So super basic stuff, right? That's why I said it's a very basic example. It just generates. It uses a NuGet package to generate a PNG from the SVG file, from this SVG file. And so yes, you can totally do that. Remember, almost all of Visual Studio's UI is WPF. So if you know how to do SAML, and you can do whatever you want. You can do SAML injection. So you can kind of reflect on things and inject anywhere you want. I don't recommend that. That's a really bad idea because bad things are probably going to happen. But there's plenty of APIs like here, adornments for the editor, for instance, where you can do a lot of very rich WPF that's completely supported and part of the extensibility APIs. Whereas if you are injecting SAML kind of at random places, you're kind of on your own. And yeah, it's probably not going to be that successful. Any other Visual Studio questions? I will say, actually, a lot of people ask me for this whole snippet thing. I hope I answered people's questions about snippets. But I need to do this. I was thinking about this, James. I think I should end every week with asking people what they want to see next week, what type of extension I should be building at that point, or concept to show, or interface to explore, or whatever it might be. And so, what do people think out there? What should we talk about? I have two questions. Any more questions for what we have today, or just in general? And then also, let me know what you want to see next time. Okay.
You know, it'd be cool, Mads, is what if there was a code snippet to create code snippets?
You know what? There is one. But I, it's kind of.
I was only thinking because you magically copied and pasted a file, and how is anyone supposed to know that?
No, it's true. I think it's in the snippet pack. Is that right? Oh no, it was in the side waffles template pack. Side waffle template pack because it had snippets, I think. So let's see here. Item templates. No? Okay. It's in there somewhere. But you know what? Now that you mention it, I should totally put it in my that extension that we built the other day. What did I call that one? Oh, I didn't copy that down either. This is a new machine. What can I say? What did we call that, James? We called it V6 item template. There it is. So open that. Let's see here. How do we do so item templates? I'm just going to copy this one. We're going to call it snippet. And we're going to call this for snippet.snippet. Is that really that boring? I think it is. Snippet.snippet. The icon is the same. C# snippet. I don't know. I could find another one. Pre-process. It's not a MEF thing, so it's just an extensibility thing like that. You could argue it's not C#, not extensibility. I don't know. Okay, and then if we open this file, we say this is a V6 snippet. Default name snippet or my.snippet. Is that the default file name? The name of this is code snippet is what it's going to look like. And it creates a new code snippet file. Okay. Should we give it a different icon? I think so. So for that, I'm going to open, it's XML. So snippet, add snippet. That's actually the snippet icon. So maybe that's what it should look like. So item, this is an item template. So you can go in and say add new item, select the extensibility, find snippets, right? So it's like, it's going to show up in here. And I think maybe add new, just this one. And what size is it? 128? What? I don't know. Let's do 128. And we do it in the item templates, snippets. And we're just going to call icon.png. Oh, there it is. So then we can go in here, right click, include in project, get rid of, let's see, how was this one? This one was not included in V6, but it's content. That's weird. Oh yeah, no, that's right. So this one should be the same. Icon.png. Get rid of that one. Okay, and this applies to V6 or C#. Yeah, I guess that's. Get rid of C#. And then what else do we have? Custom parameters, no. No wizard, no anything here. This is basic stuff. And we called it snippet.snippet. All right, Snippet. Replace parameters? No. Because we're just going to do, let's open this up. Root namespace. Oh, yeah. So let's go and find the code snippet we used before. And we're just going to copy that. So we could do something. We could do name. How do I do name? So let's find out what are some good replacements. So we need VS template. Yeah, VS template. Let's find her. I want to know what the replacements are. Oh, there's a lot here. VS template. Okay, let's hang on. We could just leave it here, JavaScript, like that. So, I mean, you can do something like username. Oh, I need to copy it in here. Already did. And then I have to reopen the snippet file. There we go. So author is, I think it's username, like that. So if I would do that, that means I have to replace parameters. And we say target file name is my.snippet, like that. Not sure if I have to do that. And I'm not sure it's username either. So I should search for VS template replacement. Here we go. See here, there's some reserved names here. So item name is the name I give it. Yep. Yeah, username, you see that? So what's the title? Item name. So that's the name I give it in the dialog. So when I create a new item, like it's the file name I give it here. So I think if I say save item name, it's without the, without the save item name. I think that's without the file extension. Project name, we don't need that. Okay. Let's try it. Control F5. So I'm probably need to open a project here. So Steven says that, add from file, the API to add from file seems to block the UI while the file is added. Are there any alternatives to this? Adding lots of files at the same time makes the UI unresponsive. Yes, that is unfortunately the world we live in. The reason I think is because that we have the project system itself. So Solution Explorer here, the project system is requires the UI thread. So that's why. It's not adding the files themselves that causes the problem. Okay, so let's see if I can add another snippet in here. Okay, I put it under extensibility. And look at this, code snippet. My snippet, we're just going to change it to foo. Let's see what happens. And here we go. It says my. What happened to foo? And then my username. So that's kind of cool. That's really cool. Yeah, save this one. So save item name didn't seem to be the thing that did what I thought it was going to do. The name of the file in which the parameter. So item name. Okay, so maybe save item name. Maybe it works for like C# cases or something, but not for this. I'm just going to try one more time. And by the way, this snippet pack right here, anyone can contribute to it. So James, thank you for suggesting to make a snippet out of this. And if you out there have other ideas for snippets, let's get it done. Let's get it done. And when I say snippets, I actually meant item templates, so that we can, when we write our extensions, we can get some good productivity by have all the scaffolding done for us. Okay, so close down that one. Now we're going to open a new one. No, I did call it my snippet. No, I didn't, because target file name. Really? Is that a thing? So it didn't matter what I wrote? So in that case, I'm going to, yeah, see. So save item name was fine. See, you live, you learn. Okay, now it'll work. So by the way, the funny thing about item templates is that they only work in the context of a solution or a project. Actually, not a solution, specifically a project. So for instance, if I go up here and say file new, this is not me adding a file to a project, right? It's me saying new file. Then you'll notice that it's completely different and they're not in here. You cannot write an extension that puts a template in file new in here. These are all built-in only, and only a handful of them. And some of them are old, like cursor file and icon file. They're kind of weird that they're in here, but that's because very few people actually use file new. Most people use add. I just use Control-Shift-A, but of course you could just, I could do it this way, add new item. And here we have our code snippet, and this time I'm going to call it bar. Let's see if it works this time. Bar and bar. Perfect. So awesome. Let's commit this. Let me see here. I may need to optimize. It was already optimized. Okay, we're good then. So what did we do? We added snippet item template. Cool. And where can we find this? V6 item template, blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Type this in. Oh, I can't do that. Okay. Okay, so this will be ready here in a moment. Oh, it's already done a few seconds ago. Let's download this. Oh yeah, I promised you I'll tell you how to what it looks like when I upload extensions. So I'll go to Market. So I use a different browser for that because I have a different sort of Microsoft ID or whatever. So I go to Visual Studio Marketplace and /manage, and I'm logged in here. And then I have a few extensions, and then I have to find the one that I want to update. And it was the V6. Where are you? V6. Did I never upload it? Really? I never did. Well, okay. Then we're going to upload a new one. Okay, so that was in my downloads. Oh, extensibility item templates. Hello. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. I was looking at the wrong place. There it is. Okay. Edit an existing extension. Upload the new version. There it is. And then we want to be alphabetically correct here. Code snippet. I need to add that to, okay, so now it's saving that. And if we find it here, I just scroll till I see this. Now it's verifying that I didn't do anything bad in my extension, like create a zip bomb or something else. So it has like a little detonation chamber where it's making sure that everything is fine before this is released to the public. So it takes about 5 minutes. And so while it is doing what it's doing, I've of course forgot to add that snippet to the README file. There it is. So if you don't have the Markdown Editor extension, you should definitely get it. That's what I'm using here. You see where I have the preview over here. So do that, and then I'm going to commit that again. Fixed README. And I'm using a service that does not kick off a CI build if I say skip CI in square brackets like that. So now I just push straight to GitHub, but my CI build here, appvar in this case, is not kicking in and doing anything because there's nothing for it to build here. I don't find that necessary. So they're still going. And it's polling, or there's a WebSocket connection or whatever. So this will just go away once it's done. All right.
Matt, you'll be very happy to know we now have an aka.ms/extension/suggestion, and anyone can go ahead and suggest new shows or code reviews. And in the last 5 minutes, I set up a Power Automate flow that will automatically take that suggestion and put it into a planner for us and assign it to you so you can get notified of every single one. /extensions/suggestion.
Okay, let's try this. So does that mean that everyone in the world can just go and do this?
That is correct.
Oh my God, James, this is amazing. So where does it go? Does it go into our Teams planner?
Goes into our planner, yeah.
Does that mean that if someone does this, it automatically just goes straight in? They can basically create new shows for us.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Okay.
Well, you have to triage them first. So
right. Yeah. So yeah. People remember, James just gave you great power, and you know what they say about great power, right? So don't abuse it. Okay. What else do we got from people here? What is Farticus? Yes, finally. I live for the days where people ask me what Farticus is. It happens so rarely. James, you might not even know Farticus.
I do not know.
So Farticus is an extension. It's the original Visual Studio FarTab. And it basically allows you to configure Visual Studio to give you audio warnings when the build breaks. And it can easily be configured in the options. So you have a choice from different sounds you can do. And what's really cool is that you also have a button on the toolbar that if you just click it, it will just give you a random sound from the list. Fart sounds, of course. And the status bar, once you have a build that fails, the status bar will and then you fix it again. The status bar will tell you how many successful builds you've had since last fart. And so this is a fantastic one that I wrote with Syed many years ago. You can see here, it's got like a really good review, right? It's one of the most popular extensions there ever was. And I can highly recommend it. It's really high quality. Of course, it's open source, so go check it out. Clone it, do one with different sounds, like Homer Simpson sounds or whatever. That's Farticus. Thank you for asking. Thank you. I wish more people asked me. This is the pinnacle of Visual Studio extensibility, summarized in a single extension. Doesn't get better than that. Okay. I think that's it. Okay, Mr. Clan says, in a future session, would be interesting to see a simple but interactive editor extension. For instance, inline color picker in SAML files, maybe. Okay, that is not a simple extension. But you can do it because there's something called an Intellisense Presenter in Visual Studio. And normally when we're dealing with Visual Studio editor APIs, you don't go into the presenter. You just provide a list of what's called completions. But you can, in fact, create a presenter. And that's what the CSS editor team did when they did this. Boom. Here, that's a complete SAML control that lets you do all sorts of rich stuff. And you can actually use this. This exists in one of the DLLs. It's called Color Picker, I think. But it uses the standard APIs for extending Visual Studio. And so it just basically takes over the regular presenter. So the regular presenter would be this. Here, right? It's a flat list. That's the one we know from all the other languages. That's a presenter called just a flat list or whatever. I don't know what it's called. So, but it's pretty cool. You can have custom presenters and do whatever you like. I think that answers that question. Did anyone ever update the achievements one? No. And that was a long time list. So the achievements extension was cool. You could install it. And you got points for doing different things in Visual Studio. Like you would get points if you coded with ASP.NET, and you would get additional points if you did desktop and WPF and mobile, and if you used various features of languages in Visual Studio. And there was like a competition there. I think this was for Visual Studio 2013, and they never updated it. I think the team that did it originally was the Channel 9 team or something. And then they didn't really exist anymore after that or something. Yeah. It's too bad. It would be a very cool community project to do. Okay. Does it include a description per CSS display property? Yeah, you can do whatever you want. So display value, I take it. See, it does have, not all of them, but some of them. So I was actually the one writing the schemas for this. And so it is my laziness that made it such that you don't get a tooltip for every single one. Sorry. Okay. I think that was the last question. And it's on top of the hour. It's exactly an hour. It's 3 o'clock exactly here local time in Redmond. So thank you so much for tuning in. Use that link that James sent you so you can create some suggestions. So we have a new show for next week. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and have a great weekend, everybody. And you too, James.